The honey badger and the mantis. You have to admit, these are the most fearless creatures in the animal world. But while the honey badger really knows no fear, the mantis is sometimes afraid for its life, well, especially on two occasions. You don't need me to tell you what's the first one. After mating, males often die. Yes, some female mantises bite off the heads of males after their wedding night. But there's another dangerous situation, and it really doesn't leave mantises any chance of survival. Take a close look at what's about to happen now. This man is holding a common mantis. He puts it into the water, although mantises don't like it very much, and what looks like a scene from the Alien movie is a creature called a hairworm. This is just an invertebrate, but it can take over the mind of a mantis and fill its entire body. Well, before this happens, the hairworm makes a rather difficult journey to get to the final destination and carry out its plan. It all starts with eggs laid in a river or pond. Over time, they develop into larvae eaten by other aquatic insects. Or rather, insects just think they're eating them. Though actually, the hairworm larva just needs to hitch a ride to get into someone else's body. Once inside, it burrows into the flesh of the host, curls up, grows a hard shell, and waits. It doesn't take long before the insect matures, grows wings, and emerges from the water. That's quite handy, because the hairworm larva has great plans for the future. It needs to get the mantis to eat the host insect. And that's when the real life of an adult hairworm begins. The life of a terrifying parasite. But the main goal of any living creature is to leave offspring. Parasites live this way not because they're evil, it's just their evolutionary adaptation. So in order to leave offspring, the hairworm needs to get into the water. The mantis must deliver the parasite there, though it usually prefers to stay away from water, not to become easy prey for birds and fish. The hairworm needs to make an effort. It affects the chemicals in the mantis brain that make the insect wander mindlessly until it reaches water. But the mantis doesn't just fall into the water. Once near water, it's affected by the light that reflects off the surface of the water and jumps there. The hairworm almost immediately gets out of the host's body and swims away. Where to? To breed, of course, and find new hosts. So what does the mantis feel during all that? Well, we can only guess. It's not like mantises will tell us how they feel, but here are the facts. The larva turns into a worm, eating fats in the body of its host, which are a source of energy. So the mantis stops developing. It stops growing and mating. Perhaps it feels exhausted, but this is still not enough. The hairworm must be certain that its host doesn't get eaten on its way to the water, and it makes the victim act as cautiously as possible. This is not true only for mantises. Other insects, like, for example, crickets, also become victims of hairworms. Crickets infected by hairworms keep silent and lose their chirp because this sound attracts predators. Also, some scientists believe the hairworm shares its immune system with the victims in order to maintain their health and not accidentally kill them ahead of time. This is some weird care. Although the worm inside the host can easily grow up to 24 inches long, this doesn't make the victim grow as well. Though this doesn't mean the insects infected by parasites look the same as other insects. I already mentioned that hairworms eat fats and prevent their hosts from growing. Indeed, even adult infected mantises or crickets look more like, well, teenagers. Affected insects have shorter legs and wings and different antennae. In short, if you put an infected insect and an ordinary one next to each other, you'll see the difference right away. And then an important question came to my mind. What happens next? Hairworms get really big, and it seems like not a single living creature can survive coexisting with such a neighbor. As soon as the worm leaves the body of the host, the latter is supposed to die right away. That's what Steve and I thought when we started making this video. But then we found out mantises and crickets are damn tenacious, guys. Yes, they can drown if they're swept away by the current. Most likely this is what'll happen. But otherwise, these insects manage to survive living with the hairworm, or even several of them. Infected mantises simply become normal again and keep living as usual.
If I go, Theoden dies. You did not kill me. You will not kill him.
If you think about it, the only way insects can get rid of parasites is to simply wait until they crawl out. Evolution didn't give them a plan B. Unless we're talking of marine gastropod mollusk Elysia marginita. This creature uses perhaps the strangest way to get rid of parasites. It sheds its body. No, seriously. It looks like decapitation. The only thing that remains from the mollusk is the head, untouched by parasites. In a few days, the body begins to grow again, and 3 weeks later, the mollusk regenerates 80% of its body, including all vital organs. A completely new body is always an exact copy of the old one, infested with parasites, but the new one stays healthy. But how is that even possible? I mean, living with a head only without a heart and other usual stuff? It takes several hours for Elysia marginita to sever the head from the body. After that, the mollusk can survive as a head for another few weeks? This is possible thanks to the unusual ability of mollusks to survive by photosynthesis. It's called kleptoplasty. The animal sequesters the chloroplast from algae in the body, and for some time they continue to photosynthesize as if nothing happened. Yeah, I also didn't believe it right away when Steve told me about it. But if that doesn't seem shocking enough for you, here's another fact that simply blew my mind. A body of the mollusk can also survive for days or even months without a head. True, the body can't grow a new head, but the heart will still beat. Imagine if people solved problems this way. Stub your toe, just shed your leg and grow a new one that doesn't hurt. That's absurd. Well, on the other hand, how are animals supposed to deal with that? They can't just take some medicine and kill the parasites. Even the most advanced of them aren't able to invent such effective medicines. Well, at least we haven't heard about it yet. By the way, scientists used to think that different migratory animals like deer simply flee from parasites to colder areas. It seems like if you're constantly on the move, no one will latch onto you. However, a 2018 study showed that migrating animals have even more parasites than those who stay in one place. They probably pick up different kinds along the way. So growing a new body's not a bad option in wildlife. Because as you already realized, parasites are not always creatures that simply eat their hosts. Frankly, this even seems to be the best option, compared to the creatures that turn the owners into zombies. But how do they do it? Do they get into the animal's brain and whisper things to it?
You're not you anymore. Now you are me.
Actually, in order to study how parasites take over someone's mind, they even created a new branch of science called neuroparasitology. Host-parasite interactions, of course, didn't appear yesterday. It took evolution millions of years to come up with something like this, but it seems that in the end, it all comes down to complex brain chemistry. Very, very complex brain chemistry. Depending on the result the parasite strives to achieve, it affects the neural mechanisms through some chemicals. For example, the fungus cordyceps uses certain but still uncharted chemicals to cause ants to climb as high as possible on a plant and stay there until the fungus completely consumes the insect. A parasitic worm with the complex name lancet liver fluke also affects ants' navigational skills so that the insect climbs higher on the grass and gets eaten by some cow. The hairworms I already mentioned force mantises and other terrestrial insects into the water in a similar way. Other chemicals activate the bodyguard function in insects. Anyway, that's what scientists call it. But I'd say brain chemicals make caterpillars and ladybugs twitch their bodies, scaring away predators. This helps the offspring of parasites survive. And you know what? Scientists managed to discover many species with similar parasitic behavior. They even created a new scientific branch. But this didn't make the principles of how chemicals work any clearer. People, of course, continue their research, but in most scientific articles, you'll only find sentences like, "And then the parasite sprays something on the victim's brain, and it's done." What exactly is it spraying? How does it work? We have no clue. Toxoplasmosis still remains the best studied case. That's a disease caused by the protozoan parasite Toxoplasma gondii. It infects rodents, lowers their dislike for cats, dooming their host to a certain death. Eventually, the parasite needs to get into the cat's body, so the rodent has to give it a ride there. There are still so many different mysterious parasites. Take Saculina, for example. Ever heard of it? It's actually a barnacle that looks like a shell, but unlike most barnacles which simply stick to the rock and filter food from the water, Saculina has evolved to become a parasite. The microscopic larva of Saculina seeks out the unsuspecting crab using specialized sensory organs. Then it attaches to the most vulnerable part of the shell, and after a while, just like a tough parasite is supposed to, it takes over the body and mind of the host. It prevents the crab from breeding and then turns it into a caring nanny. The crab tends to the offspring of Saculina as if it was its own. And it doesn't matter if the parasite targets a male. The same mysterious chemicals will affect the hormones, convince the poor animal that he's female and should act like a female. Well, you must admit, it's really cool. Perhaps some of our viewers will become so interested in neuroparasitology that they'll one day crack the composition of all these chemicals that affect the minds of animals. Who knows? See you later.